your seats, we're going to go ahead and get started. So our next session is Student Perspectives, the Visibility of Public Procurement. So this is really your opportunity in our audience to essentially pick our Penn State students' brains. So I would like to introduce everybody in this order. To my right, Jacob Krantweis, Penn State student and president of Sigma Chi Mu Tau. Next, we have Matthew Hinkle, Penn State student and president of the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. And then last but not least, we have Maria Karamanos, Penn State student and vice president of Sigma Chi Mu Tau. So in front of you on your tables, you have a set of note cards. We have a couple questions that we are going to start off with, but if you have any questions for the students, please go ahead and write them down on the note card. And then that way our Zoom audience will be able to hear the questions that are asked from me. But we will go ahead and kick things off. So what are the best practices to promote the industry to young professionals? Jacob, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can start. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
That's okay, cool. So yeah, I think one of the biggest things to promote, I guess, us to the industry is first just getting our name out there is like the visibility to it. There isn't a lot of visibility to public procurement right now. So I think that is probably the biggest step that I would say is literally just putting your name out there for students like us to know about you guys, because we don't even know about you. So it's hard to know about, like, we don't know about you, and there's going to be no promotion of the industry. So I think for me, that's probably one of the biggest things that I would have to say about that.
Yeah, I think getting to know what NASPO is, but I think a big thing is having a presence on campus. I know there is semi of a presence, but like Jacob said, a lot of us don't really know what NASPO is. A lot of people not here obviously definitely don't. But I think even after having that presence on campus, so speaking in classes, I know sometimes if you reach out to professors, they'll want companies to come in, not necessarily to promote internships, maybe like throw that in at the end, but really just like teach about public procurement. And then getting involved with orgs like what we all run. So that, if you guys don't know, Sigma Chi Mu Tau is the honor society for supply chain. I'm also a part of that. But then CSCMP, what I'm president of, is just a general supply chain org. So we have anyone from freshmen to seniors in our org, and we're always looking for organizations to come out. So I think really just keeping that presence on campus. And along with that, like once you build those connections with students, keeping those connections, because I know a lot of the times recruiters will come out, we'll talk with them, and then we'll send them a LinkedIn message, never get a response, right? So I think just really showing that you care and that you want to keep that connection after you leave campus until you come back next year is key to making sure people know what public procurement and NASPO is.
I think also getting exposure as early as possible is a big part of it. So I just overheard a little bit about how the high schoolers were able to get some exposure to NASPO, which is really exciting. I know for my high school, we weren't able to have supply chain classes, and I really wasn't sure about the field before I came to college. So continuing work and learning about what high schoolers are looking for and exposing those high schoolers to the industry would be fantastic. I think getting in early is the key, because for a lot of students, when they come to Penn State or any university, they're going to start charting their course. A lot of those students who are in like the Honor Society, Honors College, are going to really be getting their way toward their career path, and maybe they love demand planning and they're just going to keep on going with that, something like that. So being able to show them what procurement looks like, even in high school and in their freshman year, and trying to expose them to the field is really beneficial.
I'll add one more thing to that, on Maria. So a lot of the kids who come into supply chain only are thinking, again, about like private companies to go to. Like that is really the one course that most people see. Nobody sees any other course. So again, that just goes back to like the visibility aspect, finding a way to get to them early so that they know as early as possible that there actually is another course that they can take to go still in supply chain procurement.
Thank you. I forgot to mention, if anybody does have a question written on a note card, please feel free to raise it and Matt will walk around and collect them from you. But our next question is, how did you first learn about public procurement?
I can start with that one as well. So I probably the first time that I learned about it was when I realized that, so I was actually at the annual conference for NASPO last year in Austin, Texas. And so myself and 4 or 5 other members of my society got to go and just got to talk to state members, learn a little bit more about public procurement, because up until that point, like we had just labeled it like NASPO conference and we hadn't really done a whole lot more than that. And so being able to go to that conference and learn firsthand from people, from state members, and just talking and networking was the first time that I got really visibility to the industry.
So I did not have the opportunity to go to the national conference. We're looking at doing it this year, hopefully, tentatively. But I think the first time I actually heard about it was through like your LinkedIn posts and stuff, and seeing Jacob's LinkedIn post and something else. So he's helped promote it. But I think reading through like what people have posted through LinkedIn, seeing his experiences, that's why I'm looking to go. I think that's probably the first time I really heard of it. I kind of knew about it, but didn't really understand the differences until then, I'd say.
Yeah, I was similar to Matt in that I didn't really know much about it until Jacob got back and shared his experiences. So that would definitely be a goal, to be able to go to one of the conferences and learn more firsthand. Also, different articles over the course of the last year when it came to the role public procurement has played in the pandemic and outside as well. That's been a great way to learn more about the field.
Great, thank you. So our next question is, what should our state members be doing to attract more students to the field of public procurement?
I think Matt kind of touched on this earlier, was trying to reach out to those clubs that on campus to see if you guys can go in and talk to those organizations. You know, it doesn't also, so we kind of just represent supply chain, but you know, any IST clubs, maybe anything really remotely related to what you guys do on a daily basis, and reaching out to those clubs and seeing if you can go in to them and just speaking to them. Because again, just giving out the information about coming in and just talking about what you guys do, it's not something that we've ever heard of before, realistically. And so just coming in and talking to as many people as you can, and then following up, finding ways to continually follow up with those groups. You know, and letting them know that you guys have opportunities available. You'll be on campus maybe, and for just like informal meetings with them, different stuff like that, I would say.
Yeah, I would say like I touched on earlier, getting involved with our clubs. I think a big thing is doing it in person. So I know obviously we kind of got into that situation of doing everything virtually for a good reason, but then a lot of the time we've stuck with that. And I understand sometimes that is necessary, but I think I've always built a lot better relationships, have really gained a lot more. And I think everyone else has when it's been in person. So like, for example, since everyone's here today, like if this were to happen, a similar conference, like being able to utilize this time that you're already in state college to come to Penn State or whatever university you're at. Obviously it's pretty late to schedule something now, but in the future, I know we both have some of our members coming tonight, networking reception. So that's like a small bit of it, but like I said, I think highlighting the in-person aspect, if possible, is also really big.
Yeah, and similar to Matt's point about the benefits of being in person, I think seeing what you do day to day in real life would be beneficial through programs like shadowings. So if high school or college students could come in and maybe follow you around for a few days or even just a few hours, I think that could be really beneficial in understanding what your role really looks like.
Thank you. So Matt, you brought up an important aspect about timeline. So when it comes to recruitment, when should our state members, whether they're recruiting for, you know, an open position in their office and they're looking at students that are graduating soon, or whether or not they're taking a look at students to apply for their internships over the summer, when should they start talking to students, meeting with your clubs?
Can we start on this one? Okay. Yeah. So I think honestly, as soon as possible, like saying right now for the summer of 2023 sounds a little excessive, but it's really not. I actually know people that have already signed internship offers for next summer. So not this upcoming summer. Most people haven't, but people have started. So I know I signed my offer for this summer, I think in September. So honestly, like it would be early to start now for next summer, but I don't think it would be too early. So I think anywhere from a year and a couple months in advance is pretty normal. Standard would probably be the beginning of the fall semester. That's what most companies do, like most private companies. like August, September, October is when they really start for the following summer.
Yeah, aligning with the supply chain career fair at Penn State has always been great for companies because they're able to get that first crack at students. And sometimes when companies just come to the spring career fair, a lot of the students have already signed their offers. So like Matt said, I was able to sign mine for this upcoming summer last May. So there's just some companies that really get on it early. So it's really beneficial to at least have some recruiting programs, whether that be a day where you get to understand the different operations of NASPO, something like that, just to get it on people's radar, even if you're not recruiting until August.
Yeah, I agree with what they said. I think, even if you're not calling it recruiting per se, like starting in August, but like, again, if you come in, a couple months earlier than that, or the semester beforehand, and you come and speak to these kids and then you say, okay, we're going to be at this career fair next August. Like that's not, you kind of are recruiting, I guess. But you're coming in earlier, letting them know that you're going to be there and then you're there. So they already recognize your organization. They already know who you are and they're not thinking like, oh, I don't know who NASPO is. What is NASPO? What do they do? They already have that background information. And I think that's probably one of the big things that when I go to a career fair and I don't recognize a company unless I've done my research, like if I just don't recognize the name, I won't usually just go up and talk to them. Now, maybe that's just me personally, but I think there are moments when students go to a career fair, they don't recognize what NASPO is, and then they're like, well, okay, I guess I'm just not going to go talk to those people. So I guess going back to the original question, I guess starting as early as possible, maybe not calling it recruiting, but going in earlier so that when they see you at a career fair that they already recognize you and are willing to come and talk to you.
Great. So a lot of the conversation touched on this, including career fairs and, starting a lot earlier on in the school year. So how do our state members get more involved with students on campus, or how do they seek out certain clubs within universities that might seek interest from students for public procurement?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, sorry guys. I think for us, we have a department. So I'm sure a couple of you guys have talked to Tracy Shannon, so Center for Supply Chain Research here at Penn State. So we have that group that is kind of the bridge between organizations and students. And so she has been for us a great contact that we've been able to leverage to have different companies come in and talk to us. So at other, partner universities, I don't know what that looks like, but I'm assuming that they have similar people that do a similar role. So I would say in order to get into the door with these other clubs, if you don't really know who to reach out to that university contact and see how they can help you get in contact with organizations that might align with what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, so I think the big thing, like you said, is there's normally a contact. So this past year, I was able to go to Atlanta, Georgia for the CSCMP National Conference, and there's a lot of other schools there. Auburn was there. It's mainly, we're one of the only schools that go, but a couple other universities go. Auburn was there, and we talked to someone who really helps them with their career fair. So very similar to what Tracy does for Penn State, and we all appreciate it. So it seems like there is a similar contact at most schools. And then there's also, we have something called Org Central. I don't know if people have access to that externally. So we have something called Org Central where you can find all the different orgs at Penn State. I'm not sure if it's access external. I think there is, but that's where you would find a lot of the different clubs. So even outside of supply chain or even outside of business.
If there are any professors also at any of the universities that you're going to that you at one point have had, or someone in your functions has had as well, they're usually really excited to have someone come in and speak about supply chain or speak about real tangible examples in their role. So that's always a great way to connect. And if anyone would like our contacts as well, we'd be happy to help connect you with different organizations that we know here at Penn State. And we're also fortunate to know students who have connections at other universities too. So before we're all finished, we'd be happy to share anything along those lines.
Great, thank you. So one of the main initiatives that NASPO has is helping our states to develop some type of internship program, whether that's participating with NASPO's internship program, whether that's providing resources to states to help them develop their own internship pipeline within their office. So my question is, what do you think are key aspects of an internship that would make a beneficial experience?
In my internships, I really love the ability to shape my own experience to a degree. So I was fortunate to have had managers who allowed me to shadow a lot of different departments within that realm. So I had worked in procurement for a restaurant equipment and supply company, and I was able to look at different procurement roles still under that company, their umbrella. So that was really beneficial to still have freedom. And I was also able to shape my days to a degree and give some input as to what areas of my tasks I was really enjoying, what areas I wanted to take on more, and some that I really was not as big of a fan of. So having that flexibility to a degree, of course, and then the ability to explore different facets of the organization.
So I think being able to explore different facets of the organization is pretty key. I did a 8-month co-op with a major CPG company, and I was also in procurement. So I was able to see all the different areas of procurement within there. And then I also was able to get exposure outside of procurement. So I met with demand planning, met with supply planning. And I think even just shadowing them, like, while that's great, I think having one-on-ones with the managers in those areas is really key. And I know at my co-op, I felt very comfortable emailing a manager and really just like sending them a 30-minute calendar invite and being like, hey, I wanted to connect, hope this time would work. And I felt comfortable doing that because it made me feel comfortable. They wanted us to reach out and do that. So I think creating that environment where people feel comfortable setting up one-on-ones and really reaching out to different people that they might not have talked to before. I think the environment can be like a big factor in that.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. Another thing I would add is having like a mentor. So one person that this individual intern can reach out to. So I've been lucky in my experiences to have a couple mentors who have helped me onboard to what I was doing. You know, if I had any questions, I knew right away who to go to. That for me was super beneficial. And it made me feel more comfortable and like a part of the team in general. And without that person, like, I probably wouldn't have been as successful as I was. So having a mentor, definitely, you know, one person that, like, you know, this is the person that you're going to reach out to. Could also be two. I've also had it where I've had two different people as my mentors. But I feel like that having that so that the intern doesn't feel alone on an island. I think that's one of the biggest things that, like, I've had both experiences where I've not felt that way, and I've had an experience where I did feel that way. So, and I don't like being on an island. I don't think anybody does, just by themselves. So I think having that person that is designated maybe, or that maybe you guys know who that person is, I think that would be a key facet that I would try to include in an internship program if that's not something already they have going on.
Great. So I know we touched a bit on the recruiting aspect. So once a state member has an intern in their office, I think one of the questions we often get is, how do you retain that intern in your office? How do you keep them in public procurement and transition them into a full-time employee?
Yeah, I'll start with that one. I think it's difficult because, again, even after you already have them, you've already gone through an experience, they've already gone through an experience with your guys' team. They're still going to go back to school, and then a majority of what they're going to see is private companies. Like, that's just a majority of what they're going to see, and it's difficult to kind of change that mindset for students. So again, following up with them. So after the fact, right? You know, making sure that you're staying in contact with them. So for one of the companies I work for, I still reach out to, like, their recruiter. Their recruiter still reaches out to me. We still chat just about, you know, anything else that's going on, and just continually having a contact with them and knowing that you're there for them. I think showing that you care for them is super important for an intern, and seeing that you guys want them to come back as well, and telling them for also, like, after the internship, like, telling them that, like, that's kind of what you're thinking. It's like, we would love to have you back, you know, whatever that be, for another internship, for potentially for a full-time role. Telling them that so that they know where you guys stand.
Yeah, so I think discussing like future career opportunities is always good. I know in my co-op, I was always told by everyone like the different paths you could take. So I think sometimes when you're in an internship or a co-op, you don't really see the full-time view. Like you see the full-time employees, you interact with them, but you don't really understand the path their career is taking, and really just talking to them and understanding like what would be next for you if you were to come back and if you were to go full-time or whatever the case may be. I just think having that visibility to what like the next 5 to 10 years would look like would really help. Also, I think supporting the intern is key. I still talk to my one manager. I actually talked to him for like an hour last night on the phone. So, and I'm not even going back there this summer. So he just continually wants to help me. So I might go back there one day. I'm only a junior, so this is going to be another internship. So I think really just supporting them and letting them know that you care about their career as well. It's big.
Showcasing the culture while the intern is with you is something that I found to be really beneficial. So you can see, so the intern can see what it's really like to work there day to day and how everyone interacts with one another, how people can bring up issues or questions and concerns and how that's handled in the workplace. I also think that making offers early, like Jacob had mentioned, while they're still there at the end of the summer. So when they come back to school, they have an offer in hand to either, leverage other offers with or things like that. But I personally really like the idea of rotation programs when it comes to graduations. I know a lot of private companies that we all like to research are offering them. And so Matt was mentioning the ability for career growth, and that's something that I've personally seen within rotation programs, the ability to rotate between different areas of that same company. And to me, it seems like it streamlines growth a lot because you have this breadth of knowledge so early. I'm not sure how all that could be applied or if there are programs that are already in place, but personally, that's something I've heard a lot about.
I think to just jump off that, the rotational programs are good. That's something I would like to do is a rotational program, but I know they're not for everyone. So I think having both options, because I know a lot of private companies will be like, if you come here full time, you need to do a rotational program. And believe it or not, some people will actually just like walk away from that company because of that. It might attract a lot of people too, but I think having the option and not necessarily like forcing people to do a rotational program could attract more people as well.
Great. So we're going to open up questions for the audience if we have any note cards. Otherwise, I'm going to ask Matt to run around with the catch box.
Okay, so I got a few here, and I'll just read them off, Brandy, and then if you have others, feel free to write them down. So for each of you, why did you get into supply chain as your majors? Why did you choose supply chain as your major? Jacob, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the biggest things for me, there are a couple of reasons why I got into supply chain. But one of them is definitely the fact that you can do so many different things in supply chain. So I could do a job for 2 years and then switch roles completely and it'd still be in supply chain. So the fact that there's so many different facets of it and avenues that you can do with supply chain still kind of being overall what you're doing is one of the reasons why I got into it. I like the flexibility that allows me to have, that I can do, operations or procurement and then go into something else, transportation, whatever that might look like.
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons for me as well. I knew I wanted to come to Penn State. Both my older sisters went here. Penn State's kind of like a family school. People say like when your family comes here, you kind of just come here. Not by force, completely by my choice, but I knew I wanted to come to Penn State. I knew I wanted to do business. That's what I've been interested in my whole life. And then seeing our supply chain programs ranked so high, I looked into it. Then I talked to my dad, and he was actually in charge of some logistics of a local clothing store his family used to own. They had like 12 locations in the Northeast. So he always told me about what he did. Sounded super interesting. So I looked more into it and then decided to run with it, and I haven't looked back. So
yeah, I was similar to Matt in the first part of the story. My cousin came to Penn State and I always heard about how much he loved it. And I was really excited about the opportunity to come here. And when I was choosing a major, I knew I also wanted to be in the business school. And he said, okay, well, Maria, you're really detail oriented. You like planning things. Why don't you just do supply chain? I think that'd be good for you. And I was very fortunate that when I started doing supply chain as my major, I really did love it. And there's so much more to it than what he initially had described it to me as. So that's what got me into supply chain, and what keeps me as a supply chain major is just the growth opportunities and also the industry opportunities. So looking into things like machine learning and digital twins, all the opportunities in those facets of the industry really encouraged me to try different things and to look to different organizations for research and things like that. So I'm excited to see all that there is out there.
I'm gonna piggyback kind of a little bit off what they said. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but when he asked that question, all three of us kind of smiled because because we're obviously very passionate about supply chain. So I think for you guys, like tying it back to kind of like recruitment and interns and stuff, like asking them why they're interested in supply chain, like why are they there? You know, trying to figure out why they're there, what their passion is, and then if you guys are able to give that to them in any type of job or project, like I think that would be a great way to try to hold them as well. Because if they see that you guys are willing to, you know, give them something that they're super passionate about, I think that would be super important and meaningful to them. I know it would mean a lot to us, like if we were in their shoes. So I just wanted to tie it back a little bit to that. Also, I'm from State College, so also Penn State is, yeah, this is where I was going.
So I'll ask a follow-up, and remember, go ahead and write them down if you got other questions, but I think you've each touched on this a little bit, but when you're looking at a potential employer and you're starting to think about this in terms of graduating and going to work somewhere, what are you looking for out of an employer? I mean, specifically, what attributes or what are you looking at in terms of evaluating the many offers that I assume you will probably get? What are you looking for?
I can start with that one. Yeah, obviously you look at starting salary, right? Like that's one of the main things that people look at. But I think if students are smart, I'm not saying everyone is, right? But you wanna consider the entire package, and that's something I'm currently actually going through. Is I'm starting to look at full-time offers, and you know what for me is my main priority. Obviously, I want to be paid what I think I'm worth, right? But the benefits that comes along with that. Am I going to have my job, you know, in 5-10 years? So security, the location of it. I think another huge thing that obviously is being touched on now, is it hybrid? Is it remote? Is it in person? I know for me personally, I want to be in an office, at least to start. You know, maybe that actually means just a hybrid role, but I don't want to be fully remote. I'm not speaking for all students because I know there are other students who want to live wherever and then work. So there are a lot of different things. I don't want to touch on everything, but those are just a couple things that I look at, I guess.
No, like everything Jacob said, I totally agree with. But to go off of that, I think career growth is big for me. Having those opportunities. So like being able to get visibility to people that are already at that company and see where they started and see where they're at. So like quick career growth, not to the point where it's like rushed, but where I feel like my time is being used to help both the company or the government grow, but also help me grow. Also, obviously, salary. I think a big thing is location. So yes, the hybrid, the in-person, the remote. But I know, for example, this summer I am hybrid, so in the office 3 days a week, but I have to be located near the office, obviously. So even if it's remote, I feel like a lot of people want to be located where their company's located. So that's big. I know some of the big cities like Austin, all the like growing cities with like a lot of younger people moving in is always something I look at least.
I like to also consider the things that you can't really negotiate when it comes to getting a job offer. So you can negotiate your salary, you can negotiate all your benefits usually to a degree, but the culture of the company is something that kind of will be what it is when you get there. So understanding what the culture looks like and how it will play into your day-to-day is something that I like to consider and talk to other people who are working at the company to see what that looks like for them. And I also like to consider like how Matt had said, the growth opportunities, the opportunities for continual learning. So whether that be seminars within the company or the government role that allows you to do seminars, or kind of like a CLE for lawyers, but something in procurement or supply chain. So how do you continue to brush up on those skills, to take coding classes, things like that?
Great. So the next question that I had here, and I think you all answered it, but I'll confirm. So do you have jobs lined up for after graduation currently? No?
I do not. I'm graduating December. I already have 2 full-time job offers, so.
Yeah, I have one. So I have another year of school. I'm graduating May 2023. I'm a junior. I have an internship locked up this summer, and then I have one full-time offer for May of 2023 so far. But
I'm the same as Matt, junior, offer for 2023 and going to be doing an internship this summer.
Wow. So the second part of this question was, if you don't, do you want to move to Arizona? They came from our gentleman from Arizona State over here. It sounds like, so I will touch on this. So multiple offers, and both of you an offer as well, potentially, and you are juniors.
Yes.
So pretty far out from graduation, right? And already have it. So get to talking to those freshmen maybe about potential opportunities. Tracy.
I'm getting more involved with the students, and this year was probably one of the first years that I noticed, like, when Jacob came in and said that he was interviewing for full-time already, I was like, I thought you were a junior. He goes, oh, I am. And I was like, because he went for a site visit. I mean, he did the whole shebang already as a junior. So as we're talking about the pipeline, I mean, it's getting earlier and earlier. And so you need to have your, you need to have your plan in place and some goals, and you need to go after it instead of waiting and being reactive. You need to be proactive.
And opening those opportunities up also for internships and co-ops to freshmen and sophomores is a big thing, because there are a lot of really qualified freshmen and sophomores who are just unable to have that role because they're only slated for juniors at the moment. And sometimes the juniors already have offers because of previous internships or something. So taking a chance on a younger student can often pay off really well.
Right, yeah, I was gonna add that, the number of jobs obviously is what it is, but something that you can do as well is, if you look out for, contracting opportunities with the federal government, and looking for those companies that win those contracts that will then have to hire a bunch of procurement officers for those contracts, that's a great opportunity to get a lot of, to get a good experience in public procurement. On they usually ramp up pretty quickly once they get these big contracts. So that's another avenue for maybe you could pass that on to other students as well, to look for these companies that win contracts. They they have to hire people as well.
and it's good. That's interesting. Definitely.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that before. Thank you.
Like I said, I mean, that's obviously new information to
Yeah.
us, so I can probably guarantee you that not many supply chain students or students in general know that that's an avenue, right? Like, it just goes back to the visibility, like getting students to know that information is the first step. They don't know it, they're not going to know to go about that. So that's a great point.
Lois.
I was just wondering, the jobs offers that you guys are looking at, did you intern, or was it something that you seen on LinkedIn or one of the other medias?
Yeah, so the 2 job offers that I have so far are not from companies that I've done internships with. I actually need to reach out to all of those companies that I've done internships with to see if they would offer me, but I don't currently have.
So since I'm a junior, mine's unofficial standing right now. I don't have like the official offer letter yet, but mine was from an internship. Once again, not since it's so far out, I haven't gotten like anything official on it yet, but that's what I've been told. And mine was from my internship.
Yeah, mine's also a verbal offer, and it was from a previous internship.
But so just to in terms of mediums, like where we got them, I got them from this past supply chain career fair at Penn State. So that's actually where I've got all of my opportunities, internships and opportunities from. Everything that I've done has come through that, except for one, actually, now that I think about it. But for me, that's been super crucial. I I got a co-op, I accepted a co-op, I was a freshman student, I accepted a co-op for my like sophomore, junior year, I believe it's my junior year. So very far in advance, but that's how far in advance some of these companies are exploring students, because I guess that's how I think of us, which is nice, but again, to keep up with that, it's very difficult to keep up with that.
Another thing that also is a beneficial way to interact with students and have them get some exposure to your jobs and your roles is through honors option projects and honors theses. At Penn State, we have a great department that comes up with some fantastic projects in collaboration with companies and different groups. So I was fortunate to complete a few honors option projects with different companies as part of my demand fulfillment class and now as a part of my procurement class. So it's a really great way to learn more about the role and learn about it in a day-to-day sense. And for theses, there are some great projects that are submitted when students don't necessarily know what avenue they want to go down, but they want to earn their honors in supply chain. So if you have projects that you're interested in solving for different lengths of time, you could definitely submit those to Penn State, or I'm sure a lot of other universities as well.
Yeah, I didn't do any of those specifically, but during my co-op, I actually like helped students that were full-time students at the time during my co-op. I actually helped them with theirs because the company I was co-oping at did something similar to that. So.
And there are projects, not even just through honors,
Right.
But through Center for Supply Chain Research here at Penn State. So they offer students the option to do projects. Again, at your university, wherever that might be. Sure that they have similar people in those roles that offer projects to those students.
Yep. So I'll just follow up on that. So the student projects, we have done those. We do those at Penn State. We actually have one that is going on right now here in the spring. So we have a research topic that we have a student working on that. We've done that in the past as well. Beyond just having an intern, student projects, I think to your all's point, it can be done during the semester, right? As part of your course, maybe outside of it, but it's also one very specific project with a start and end date on it, essentially, more or less, right? Rather than an internship that may incorporate a bunch of different ones. So for you all, you may think about that. When you engage with a different university, think about, do you have a project that may fit a student doing some research on it, doing some analysis, whatever it may be. And we're going to talk more about that tomorrow when Brandy and I do the closing session on looking for some of these opportunities. But I know we've had some success with it, and I know a few states who have as well.
Just to build off that, if you're able to offer these research projects, right, then that is also visibility to public procurement. So maybe they're interested in an internship after that if they do well, right? Like again, that's showing they've already seen what you guys kind of do, right? And the student a little bit better. Can you offer them an internship maybe? I mean, obviously special cases, right? But that's another way that you can start building a type of relationship with these students.
Maybe time for one more, Brandy, or
Yep.
one more question, anybody? Yeah, Joe.
So I'm wondering if any of you have plans for going to graduate school or how that's going to fit into your plan.
Yeah, I can start on that. So I do plan to go for my MBA. Not sure when. Probably not right out of college, but we'll see. Possibly. Hopefully, try to get some financial assistance with it. So not sure if it'll be at Penn State or where it'll be, but ultimately, I do plan to go to graduate school.
Yeah, I'm still debating that one. That's a really good question. We're fortunate that there are some great scholarship options within Penn State through different universities like MIT and things like that for graduate school. I think it honestly will depend on where I'm at in a few years in my career and whether or not I feel it would be a benefit to help me to continue to grow in that role, but absolutely on the radar.
Yeah, I've thought about it as well. I'm not 100% sure. However, I know a lot of the private companies now obviously offer assistance for that. And so I think, if I'm able to have somebody else pay for it, I'm not going to say no to that. So it's definitely something on my radar, but I'm not 100% sure yet. Kind of will take into consideration where I'm at. Do I need it at that point? I don't know. It's up for debate, I guess, at this moment. Good question.
Got one more.
All right,
friend.
last one. Are you gonna make him an offer on the spot? Is that what's?
They already have offers. That's a whole nother thing. So just as an FYI, so many universities, especially state universities, right, fall under state procurement, but all universities have procurement and supply chain. Most of them come with free education all the way up through doctorate. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking at where to go. You don't have to get somebody to pay for it if you actually work for the university that's providing it. So just something to keep in mind.
That's really good to know.
That is
Thank
interesting.
you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and a round of applause for these three.